empty the chamber on them. And how do you do that? First 6 seconds, put 8 point beat, everything you got. Everything you got. Turn that shit up. Let's go.
Welcome to the Scoop World Order Game Week Edition. It is almost here. We are through Monday. We're going into Bloody Tuesday down in Atlanta. The team arrived on Christmas night. Full jet, charter, loaded up, guys ready to rock. It's the sand in the hourglass is slowly dripping down. There ain't gonna be much left soon. You get your last big practice tomorrow. A little light practice on Wednesday, easy practice Thursday, Friday walkthrough, and then it is go time for the boys. So it's here. We'll see what our boys can do. But as always, we're thankful and grateful for you guys. I hope you guys had a great Christmas with your families and your loved ones. Appreciate you guys that tune into this. Comment down below who needs to step up to beat the Georgia Bulldogs, and also shout out where you're from. We appreciate you guys as always. Throw those questions in the chat if you're watching this live as we film it. Appreciate you guys. And also check out BuckeyesCoop.com, the #1 premium experience for Ohio State fans. The biggest Ohio State fans are on there. The best Ohio State fans are on there. So we appreciate you guys. We'd love for you to check us out if you have not already subscribed. That being said, going to bring in my good friend, Santa Claus, TJ Downing, the Modelo Monster. What's going on, big dog?
Cheers, man. Merry Christmas. Scoop Nation, Scoop World. Merry Christmas. Happy holidays.
Scoop
game
World.
week. It's game week.
TJ, we never played in the playoffs. We played in championship game. But, this is an early game. I was talking to someone about how, the Alamo Bowl was kind of weird because we had to practice on Christmas. It was kind of like one of those things where it's like, God, I don't ever want to do this again, because it kind of sucked because we were chilling in the hotel room and a lot of the team was drinking at the bar on the Riverwalk in San Antonio. But, I was like, God, this sucks. I'd rather play in a real bowl game, leave on the 26th like we did in every other bowl game we played in, and head out to the bowl site. Your thoughts on it's such a quick turn, it feels like. I mean, the 31st, everything's on the line. How are you feeling, I guess, 5 days out from the game?
I guess from the last time you and I talked, I still feel the same way, but you have to elaborate a little bit more about the Alamo Bowl. And first of all, I'll always say this. The Alamo Bowl, to me, is it's a good bowl game, right? It's not the Car Care Bowl or the Idaho Potato Bowl. The Alamo Bowl has been a pretty solid bowl game for years, right? But you have to tell everybody about my sleeping arrangement at the Alamo Bowl.
No, so TJ had a bad back, and they literally brought in a piece of presswood, like a giant sheet of presswood, like for building a house, and they laid that on top of the mattress, and TJ slept with I think a sheet on it.
Well, it's supposed to go between the mattress and the box spring to add support. But I was like, no, it's not doing anything for me because it was such a soft mattress. I'm like, just lay that thing right on top of the mattress, and I slept on that the entire week. And if I wouldn't have slept on that, I would have been garbage because my back was it was so jacked up. My thing was flexibility. My hamstrings were, when we would test bench, hang clean, squats, sit and reach was my worst test. I couldn't touch my toes, and so my hamstrings were tight. And so if I slept on a soft mattress, my back would get tight and I couldn't run, I couldn't move, I would be locked up. And so, they brought that up for me, man. And that was that was a heck of a week. But it was a weird feeling playing the day after Christmas, and then penny slots. Yeah,
that might be the funniest thing I've ever read. TJ looks like he's been playing penny slots for 12 hours straight. Sean, thank you for that comment. That might have made my entire Christmas week right there. TJ looks like he just came from the casino with a roll of quarters, and he's been partying all night, drinking free Modelo's. No, but I agree. I thought everybody that went to the Alamo Bowl had a blast. I've never met a single person, and it seems like more and more people say they were at that game, even though I think we had a great contingency, and I think that the fan base traveled hard to that game because, we never play in San Antonio. And also, it's a fun city. The Riverwalk is great. But, we waxed Michigan as our last game. So I felt like that kind of drummed up the support. And plus, it was kind of a funky, it was like the 28th or the 29th. So it wasn't, people could enjoy Christmas, they could enjoy New Year's. And then, like, in the middle of the week, it's like, oh, go watch an Ohio State bowl game in San Antonio where hopefully we never play again. Because if we do, that means we had a bad year. But I actually had a blast. I mean, it was like, it sucked because we were used to going to the Fiesta Bowl and like big time bowl games. And then we go to an Alamo Bowl and, it's not quite as nice, but the people did a great job. It's a great venue. The hotel's right on the Riverwalk. People had a blast. So, it just, and again, it was just so low key because there just wasn't as much pressure because the game really didn't mean much other than pride. It wasn't, you weren't playing for a ring. You weren't playing for a national title. We didn't win the Big Ten that year. So it was just kind of like
there were some great backstories though. Troy had been suspended. So Justin Zwick was starting.
Yeah.
We weren't expected to beat Michigan in the Horseshoe. I think we were double-digit underdogs at home. We were in a rebuilding year. We had gotten beat by Northwestern in overtime. We had gotten beat by Purdue. I mean, we struggled. I mean, it was tough. Iowa, wow, they smoked us, right? Wow. And but the thing was, like, we, for the Michigan game, had finally put it all together, right? The pieces all came together. The missing link, 72, was in the lineup, right? And then Troy goes out, and then Justin comes in, and Justin played a really good game. He did. I mean, you got to give him credit. I mean, that the Alamo Bowl was fun, and I say that about the Alamo Bowl because I'm looking back on the Big Ten Network, and they're kind of rolling some old Alamo Bowl games. Think back to Purdue in '98, Drew Brees. That was a great Alamo Bowl game. Think about a guy like Derek Fox, Dustin Fox's brother, who was the Alamo Bowl MVP when Penn State beat Texas A&M back in like 96, 97. I mean, there's been some really good Alamo Bowl games. And let's not forget, that was a Les Miles coached Oklahoma State team. They weren't a bad team, but we went over there. I mean, we went down to San Antonio. We handled them. Like you said, that was a great atmosphere, great city. How about Pat O'Brien's?
Saving grace. It's a great tourist trap, and people loved it.
Hurricanes. I mean,
God.
What actually? Can I get somebody on our chat line to actually tell us? I'll send them one of my pennies from the penny slots. What actually goes into a hurricane? Because I think it's like 15 different boozes.
It's like 151 and like Kool-Aid, and like cheap liquor. It was I don't know. Those things are the definition of the tourist trap. Well, the team got down yesterday. They flew down on the charter, landed last night, had a practice this morning at the Mercedes-Benz Dome. It's kind of nice to practice at the stadium. They don't have to practice at some high school or adjunct university. Tonight, the one thing that's kind of neat, I interviewed the president of the Peach Bowl twice, and they really do a lot of stuff between the teams. So Georgia and Ohio State played Family Feud tonight, and Ohio State won, so they get like this WWF championship belt to walk around with for the day. And they got to play some event tomorrow night with the belt on the line again. TJ, did you like, really like with Notre Dame, like our only event where we really mingled is like the FCA breakfast, but did you like seeing and mingling with the team you're about to play in the bowl game? Like, because the Peach Bowl, they do it every night. There's like some event every night, for at least the first 3 nights where they're interacting and joking and like, how do you feel about that?
It was awkward, and how about at the Alamo Bowl? We had the talent. I think it was like a talent showcase.
Oh,
Rob Sims got up there. Rob Sims brought the house down.
Yeah, he's saying Carmen, Ohio, which I mean, that's like for us, we know the song. Most mainstream people don't know Carmen, Ohio. I mean, unless you're an Ohio State fan, you know the alma mater. But they had a defensive tackle named Walter Thomas who got up and sang like a gangster rap song, and it was unbelievable because it was just like, I was like, oh my God, there's like women and children, and he gets up and just goes straight X-rated up on the mic like he's Biggie Smalls at his prime, and I
Yeah.
think he played like
And
5
then-
stops because what's up?
And then Justin Zwick got X-rated on Walter. If you remember, was it Ted Ginn's reverse?
No, he didn't peel back on Walter. Walter barely played.
Justin Zwick decapitated Walter Thomas on a crackback block. He never saw it coming. It was on Ted Ginn's reverse. I got the video footage.
It
Go-
was
go to my
it was
Facebook
on
page.
it was on Walter.
Yes.
Walter
Big
weighed like
number
4.
77.
Oh my god, he played like 400 pounds.
Justin
Well-
smoked him.
We so we're getting ready to play probably the best 2 tight ends we've seen all year, and it's a bit of a weird year for Ohio State because we played basically the best tight ends in the country. We played Michael
Wait, better
Mayer
than
from
Iowa, and Iowa's got the best 2 tight end set in America, right?
No, well, I mean Notre Dame's got the best tight end in the country. Iowa's tight end was all Big Ten. He's really good, but these guys are a different level. Brock Bowers is probably gonna be a top 10 pick. He's like that good, and then they've got the giant. He's like 6'7", 280. Guy that he doesn't touch the ball a lot, but he's a monster if he does. TJ,
I'm only saying that jokingly because Ryan McClincy and I on our Buckeye Scoop podcast, when the Buckeyes were getting ready to play Iowa this year, it's like, okay, defensively, how are we covering down on Iowa? Your top 2 receivers are tight ends, right?
yeah,
But now, first of all, just to run back here real quick on having to mingle with those guys, it's
Yeah.
tough, because you're getting ready to do battle with these cats. You're trying to you're in game week, you're trying to get your focus right, and then even the FCA breakfast like you talked about, and you mentioned Notre Dame. We went there and Charlie Weiss gave one of the worst FCA breakfast speeches in history. He was talking about Satan and the devil and all this stuff. It's like, holy smokes, what are you doing, Charlie? But to have to like rub elbows with those guys and it was always awkward. So to have to do that now, like you're saying, every day leading up to it, it's such a media PR, just it's a whole stunt. It's not fun. Nobody wants to have to do that. The players don't want to do it. The coaches don't want to do it. So, I understand why you have to, but nobody likes it from a player standpoint. And I'll even mention too, they had me with was it Anthony Fasano, the tight end from Notre Dame?
yeah.
I had to do like a Tostitos Fiesta Bowl challenge with him where they asked us like 15 or 20 questions and it was all related to Tostitos. Obviously, I won because, I know a lot about Tostitos, but it was just like to have to sit there next to Anthony, even though I'm not lining up against him. He's a tight end. I'm an offensive guard. But if you would have put me next to Trevor Laws or Victor Abumeri, Derek Landry, I mean, come on, dude. It's just weird.
Yeah, I totally agree. I didn't want to mess with those guys. I didn't want to see those guys. I didn't even want to try to get to know those guys because it's just not how I'm wired when I'm getting ready to go against those guys because they're trying to take what we want. And I don't want there to be any confusion as to what it is. But getting into Georgia, we're into Tuesday practice. If you're watching it right now, it's going to be tomorrow. I'm going to put this up. So it's likely today if you're listening to it on one of the podcasts.
Hey, we got 72 watchers right now. That's a good number.
Oh, I know people are cranking. They're tuning in after the game just ended. But no, I like the plan. I'm hearing Josh Proctor. I'm hearing Sonny South. They got to do something against these big tight ends. Darnell Washington, thank you, Sue. He is draft eligible. She asked that. He's the guy who's massive, 6'7", 280. He's like an all uniform team kind of guy. But I think that, Ryan's going to do a good job of going tempo and keeping these guys off balance. Because if you watch the film, like I've watched the SEC championship multiple times. I watched last year's team in the championship, against Bama. I watched the SEC title game against Bama. And again, I know that's different players from last year, but it's always interesting to see how teams do after a long break, a long layoff, wrinkles they do. The first drive against Bama, they jump into bear. They run a 2-down look. I mean, they're all over the place with the fronts they're running. They had this funky like two D ends, or the D tackles like stood up like ends, and then they walked inside and got into 3 points. I mean, it's really weird stuff. I'm just gonna pull it up and just show it to people. But I just think they got to be ready for that. And I think that the best thing you could do is just go fast against it, because it's, I'll bust out a couple clips real
I mean,
quick.
how do we honestly feel about Brian Hartline as an OC? Like, this is his first go.
Well, I mean,
It's not his first
I mean,
rodeo.
Kevin Wilson's still going to be running everything. I mean, they're not going to give Brian. Brian's going to be doing the same thing he's been doing. Yeah, but like here, first play of the game, they jump into bear. They shift late. Let me see. No, this isn't the one. Hang on a second. Let me switch this. This is the second game. Let me get the bear snap on. No, Brian will be doing the same stuff he's always been doing. Is this snap this bear? I think this is bear here. But it's going to be interesting just to see. Okay, here it is. All right, so the very first play of the game against Bama in the championship. Now, again, I know this is last year's team. This isn't the same players. Obviously, they had 15 guys drafted off this team. But the first play of the game, they jump right into bear. So, I mean, this is just a look that you're going to see. Again, they're in a normal 4-down. This linebacker yells something, shift to bear. First play of the game. So, I mean, they're going to be running junk to get our offensive line to move, to shift, to get them kind of, out of pocket right off the bat. Shift back here and find the next play. That's the first play. They go to bear. Second play. This is the second play of the game. National championship versus Bama. Obviously, Lanning's gone. He went to Oregon. Kirby Smart is still the DC though. So they start in bear, shift, pre-snap. Again, they're just doing stuff to, just screw up the blocking angle, screw up the blocking calls. Again, their defense last year was probably the best defense in college football history. And then the next play, they run this funky 3-down look, or it's a 2-down. So this is Carter. That's the guy that's their best defensive tackle, best player in probably the country this year. These are the D tackles. These are the ends. 4 is the guy that went number 1 overall. So they run this shift. This is 3rd down, nickel situation, and then they shift in. So again, this is all the first. This is the first 3 plays of the game. I mean, they run some crazy stuff to get Alabama confused. And again, they've got 88 who's back this year. He's their best player.
Smart. That's a smart move.
Yeah, and so they do that shift, and then they run a double A gap blitz on top of it. I mean, again, this is the kind of exotic stuff you got to be ready for. And I mean, it's going to be hard to communicate. It's going to be loud. So you're running a 6-man protection. Bama does a fantastic job, picks it all up. But again, there's no just line up and play ball with these guys. This is and again, here's Carter. This is the guy we're going to see. I believe 44 was there. That's the guy that went number 1 overall last year. He's a D end. So the shift. That's the kid.
44 went number 1 overall.
Yeah, he went number 1 overall in the draft. This kid was their best end. He tore his knee. He's out. But they shift into this big time pass rush, double A gap blitz. Again, this is you got to have good communication, a lot of talk. They're running a twist here, A gap twist. I mean, this is next level stuff. And again, the whole key to that is they get rid of the ball fast. Because if you hold on to that rock, man, you're gonna get killed. And again, and again, the thing that I stress with CJ Stroud is you have to run, because there's going to be a time where they're going to run something exotic and someone's going to blow it. Someone in the protection is going to blow it because they're good. And they run stuff that I watched and I'm like, wow, that's really good stuff. It's hard to pick up. Like if you're no lineman and it's loud and you don't get the call, or you got to change the call or whatever it is, like, you got to be ready for a blow. You got to be ready to run, because like that's the thing is that stuff's great. But they're running cover zero behind it, so it's man to man, and but you could kill them if you get out of the pocket and go scramble and run. Now, you better wear your vapors because Georgia's guys can really run. You don't see anything like this in the Big Ten. But again, so you just got to drop his balls and go win us a game. Like he's got to go win it with his arm and his feet, and there's no more saving it. You got to empty the clip. There's no more saving it for tomorrow, and no more the I'm not a running back, so I don't run BS talk that he said before. But yeah, I think that the biggest thing is they just got to weather the storm because these guys are going to bring Georgia's going to bring some crazy stuff to start the game. I've studied them in the big games. They bring some crazy stuff. They're going to bring looks that we haven't seen yet or haven't studied yet, or they're just putting in for this game. So, and again, there's only so many things you can do in football. It's not like they can bring out 12 guys on defense or something like. So, but we just got to be ready for whatever it is, and you got to be gap sound. You got to turn your protection, run 7-man protections, turn it, and just makes it real easy to pick up.
I mean, when you have multiple All-Americans on your defense, it almost makes it feel like you have 12 guys out there. But you mentioned about Carter, Jalen Carter, right? Is he better than Geno Atkins?
In college. In college for sure.
When Geno was coming out of Georgia, there was a lot of potential there. And then look at the run he had in the NFL. Geno was a stud with the Bengals for years, right?
Yeah, but he went like 5th round. He wasn't like coming out of Georgia. He wasn't like Jalen Carter is probably going to be probably a top 3 pick in the draft, top 5 at worst. Right now he's the number one.
He's been the best defensive player in college football this year.
He's the number one guy on Mel Kiper's big board, which that doesn't mean anything, but that's what on all the NFL draft things, he's the number one guy. So he might not be the most productive guy. You could probably say like Tommy Eichenberg's more productive or something like that. But in terms of NFL potential, he's the best guy in the country on the D line. According to the experts, not me. I've watched 4 or 5 games. He is the truth. He's a great pass rusher, super explosive. I think he's better than Glenn Dorsey, who we played in 2007. He's probably better than any D tackle we saw when we played. I can't think of a guy that was like a number 1 overall pick type that we went against. We went against good guys, but they weren't this cat. This cat is super, because the difference is he's really twitchy. He's a pass rush guy. He's not just some big blob like Alan Branch or a big strong nose guard like Quinn Pickett. Yeah, Antaj. He went 7th round. He wasn't even in the equation.
What about you got like we saw Luis Castillo from Northwestern.
No, even with all the juice he had in his body, he wasn't anywhere near as good.
Jonathan Babineau from Iowa.
Oh my God, stop. B-Mod, thank you so much for the super chat. Appreciate you, brother. Yeah, we're grinding. It's late night. We got 78 people watching. Appreciate you guys all on here.
So you honestly feel Georgia's defense last year considered best defense of all time? College football?
Easily. There's nobody even close to that. Easily.
Okay. Who's your number 2?
I don't know.
if you're saying easily, it's like that's.
Dude, they had 15 guys get drafted. They broke our record. They had 15 guys get drafted, and then this year they have like 3 All-Americans on this defense that played on last year's defense. The one guy's going to go. They have 2 first round, another 2 first rounders. They had 5 first round picks on their defense last year, and then they got 2 or 3 more this year. So I don't know. That's pretty good. I think some of the Alabama defenses in the late 2000s, early 2010s were really good. But I think last year, you just look. They had the number 1 overall pick at D end. They had the D tackle Jordan Davis. He won every single award. He was 6'6" and weighed like 360, and he ran a 4.7 at the 40 in the combine. That's like nobody does that. And they had They had a first round linebacker. They had a linebacker that went 2nd round that probably should have been a first rounder, Nakobe Dean. Dude, that defense. Let's go look at the statistics. Other than and the crazy thing is Bama actually got off on them with Jameson Williams over the top, which, again, I think if we're going to win this game, you got to throw it deep. You got to max protect, throw it deep, throw it over their heads. They gave up 500 yards last game. Because this defense isn't anywhere near as good as last year's. I mean, they got the same jerseys and the same, they're still like, top rated defense, but they're not as good as they were last year. It's not even close. But, they're weak. There's guys in the back end that you can exploit if you do it. Now, if we want to get cute and not throw to Marvin Harrison 15 times, then that's on Ryan Day. I mean, Ryan Day, he can decide he wants to win this game and exploit our matchups with the best receivers, or he can try to get cute and do some of the stuff they did against Michigan. Because we had 15 snaps in the red zone versus Michigan, and we didn't target Marvin Harrison a single time, which is absolutely insane to me. Because I mean, I think he's the best receiver in the country, and when you get him down there, even if he's bracketed, I mean, take a shot. Because they're probably gonna have to interfere. Like the way the throwing game is in college and the NFL now, it's I don't know. No, you know what, David? I agree with you. I think Bama, because again, I just think Saban is so good. If J-Mo doesn't get hurt, you're right. They probably do beat him again. I mean, J-Mo was really good. I mean, he's the guy that got robbed out of. He should have been the Blitnikoff winner last year instead of Jordan Addison. But again, that defense was really good. I mean, they won it all with Stetson Bennett playing quarterback, which says it all. I mean, it's like when you have like this a random guy win a national title. Usually, there's really good skill guys like George Pickens, James Cook, and then there's also a really, really good defense. But I mean, I just thought their front, when you have the number 1 overall pick, you have Jordan Davis, he won like every major, the Lombardi, like every major award, and then you've got Jalen Carter, who's probably going to be a top 3 pick this year on your front, on your D line. And then the other guy, Nolan Smith, is probably going to be a first-round pick. He's the guy that tore his knee. He's out for this game, thank God. He's our best passer. Because, like, the one thing that this team doesn't do well is they don't rush the passer very well. And for as good as Georgia is and as often as they have the lead, they had fewer sacks than we did, which is crazy. Like, I thought, like, the one thing that was disappointing, other than our run defense versus Michigan this year, is I thought our pass rush would take a big step. It really didn't. Like, I mean, last year, Jim Knowles led the nation in sacks at Oklahoma State with 57. And I think we're in like the mid-30s this year. And that's with JT Tuimoloau, Jack Sawyer, Zach Harrison. I think our rotations have been trash, honestly, because we don't play Mike Hall enough. We don't play Ty Leak. And so I don't know if there's something extracurricular going on there that we don't play our most active pass rushing defensive tackles. But I think Mike and Ty Leak have to play it because those guys are just harder to block flat out than the guys that we play over them.
Do you think Mike just caught a lot of people off guard at the start of the season? He had a couple great games coming out the blocks.
I don't think that, because like when I watch him, I think he's really, really quick and really explosive, and he's like hard to handle. Like there's some guys like, and I totally get what you're saying, because there are guys that they're kind of like lightning in a bottle, and then people get a book on them, and all of a sudden they slow down dramatically. But his ability and his strength, because he's a gym rat guy, he's an explosive guy. He's kind of like, he's like if David Patterson had a better first step and like a better body, and like that's kind of what Mike is. Because like David's the kind of guy that, when you go against him in practice and one-on-one pass rush, you think he's going to have 15 sacks, and he just didn't have that kind of stamina to do that. And he kind of had like a funky, he was kind of like a baby Geno Atkins in terms of just being like a weird looking, funky looking dude who could really get after the quarterback like in practice, but he didn't really have the stamina to do that in games. But, Mike, Mike is, the weird thing is Mike and Jack Sawyer led the team in sacks with 4.5, which is a pretty paltry number considering like, Chase Young had 15 his last year at 19. And, but they're playing like 10, 15 plays a game. Like Jack Sawyer against Michigan played like 17 plays, which is literally nothing. Like JT Tuimoloau played like 55 plays, and Zach Harrison played 60 plays. And then you look at our D tackle rotation, Mike Hall and Ty Leak play like 10, 15 plays a game. And I'm like, if I'm the offensive guard and center, I'm sending Larry Johnson like a gift card to dinner or something, because I'd be like, thanks for leaving those guys on the bench, because these other guys are way easier to block than those two. Because that's how I judge D linemen, D ends, and D tackles, is how easy are they to block? Like if I had to go against them, would I be nervous, or would I say this is like a vacation? Because this, like, we had guys on our team that when I saw that Vesey was in at like 3 technique, I was like, it's like a vacation. They're so easy to block. They have no moves, no strength. They can't bull rush, and they don't have any juice. So it's just, I think we play too many guys that are too easy to block on the interior, and I think that's part of the reason why Michigan dog walked us. Is because those guys you put those guys out there against Michigan, and Michigan's guys ate their faces. And you got to get some guys in there that are dogs that are gonna push those guys back, because we don't push anybody back on the interior when we play these older guys. They actually get pinballed. And I watched the first long run, the one where we really needed it, when it was like a 7-point game. They get the ball coming out of towards the closed end. They're down by the open end of the stadium, and the run goes for like 75 yards. Like our three technique got launched into orbit, and then Tommy Eichenberg didn't get the fit, and it was 75 yards gone. And it's just, that can't happen against Georgia. It can't happen against good teams. You got any thoughts on that?
Henry California just mentioned Aaron Donald. Comparing Jalen to like an Aaron Donald, like what you have to do offensively as an offensive line when you're going against somebody like Aaron Donald, and what he commands, the respect, the attention, because of how great he is, not only with his hands and his leverage, but I mean, you put two guys on him and it's still, I mean, you and I both know when you double team somebody, when a tackle guard or a guard center, when you double team somebody, you should send that guy into orbit. I don't care how great of a player he is. I don't care if he's first team All-American, if he's honorable mention All Big Ten, if he's Jordan Roth. It doesn't matter, right? But is Jalen on an Aaron Donald type caliber?
I mean, I think for college he is. I mean, obviously there's only one Aaron Donald, but he's the kind of guy that, I always think that offensive coordinators and offensive head coaches are incredibly stupid when there's a known pass rusher and you let that guy beat you. Like it's like when I watched the Super Bowl, I'll never forget when Von Miller played against the Carolina Panthers in the Super Bowl, and they have Mike Remmers scoring against him, and he clearly can't block him, can't even put a finger on him, and they do nothing to help the guy. No chips, no cuts, no move the pocket, no, and I'm just like, these guys should be like taken out. These coordinators should be taken out in the back and shot for what they do to some of these linemen. That they like, if you've got a matchup where this guy's gonna get killed and you don't help, then that's you. It's like, if you got to stop Michael Jordan in a basketball game and you don't double team him every time he touches the ball, that's your fault. If he goes for 60 points, that's your fault. Like, I mean, no one's going to be able to check that guy, or Kobe or whoever. It's like, when you've got a pass rusher who's really good. And again, I don't like our matchups on the interior between Jalen Carter and either Matt Jones or Josh Fryer or Enoch or whoever's playing right guard. Even Donnie, who is, a true sophomore, made first team All Big Ten this year. Luke Whippler, wherever 88 is, Luke Whippler should slide that way and help. And because the thing about the double team is, like with a lot of these guys, when they get double team, they shut it down, man. I'm telling you, Jalen Carter, he's the same as Jackson Smith-Njigba, man. He's 4 quarters away from being a millionaire, or 8 quarters away if they win and beat us. And, a lot of these guys, like Dwight Freeney and some of these guys, they talk about when they would get double teamed or they see a chip coming, they would just take the play off, basically, because they're not going to beat 2 guys, so they might as well save their energy for when they get singled up. Some guys will go through it. Kirby Smart will probably make these guys fight through it, but I just think it's demoralizing to these guys when they get double teamed, because these guys want one-on-one matchups where they can just kind of get off and get that hit their move and pressure the quarterback, sock the quarterback, energize the crowd, energize the defense and the team. But if you double team them every time, they can't really do that. I mean, I would cut them. I would move the pocket, sprint outs, nakeds, anything you could do to make it so that CJ's not just standing there behind the center 5 yards like a statue and getting, T-boned, which, if they do that, we don't have a chance. We're going to get killed. So, if
like
that's
Martin going against Jarvis Moss.
Oh my God. I know.
You got to do something, right?
You'd hope,
Hey, honestly though, when going back to some of that film you put up there from Alabama and Georgia, showing those different looks that we've never seen before, right? I mean, they're doing different things to try and throw you off. I think back to 2006 when we played the game of the century against Michigan. We had seen every snap of Michigan from the previous 3 seasons leading up to that game. And never once defensively did they walk Sean Crable up into the A gap. And the first play we got the ball, we're down 7-0 because Michigan got the ball first. They drove down, scored. We go out there, our first play of the game, our first possession, they walk Sean Crable up into the A gap. And Michigan had never walked Sean Crable up into the A gap. And they did it on the first play of the game. You know, you have to try and show different looks. And I hope that, you know, Coach Knowles, when I saw him at Tom Benson Hall of Fame Stadium for the state championship game, he was up there to see Arvell, and you could see in his eyes that what happened in those final 2 quarters against Michigan, it's been wearing on him. You know, it's different. You know, you and I both know when you're at a program like Ohio State and the expectations, you're a DC or you're an OC and you're getting paid big money and something goes wrong. Now, again, we talked, I can't remember if it was you and I or Ryan, but Terrell Pryor, you know, everybody thought that Terrell Pryor, it was going to be all sunshine and rainbows when he came in and took over as quarterback. You knew there was going to be a moment where you're human, and it happened up at Purdue. And just like a player, it's going to happen for a coach too. So for Jim Knowles, that happened for him against Michigan. He's ready to go now against Georgia. What are the different looks? What are you going to give Georgia that's going to throw them off?
Are you asking me, or are you just saying that as a statement?
It's a statement, and I'm asking you, what do you do? Do you? I mean, we're not really a huge blitzing defense, right?
I mean, he's run some pretty crazy exotic blitzes. I mean, you know, when we got scorched, you know, on a couple of those passes, we were bringing the house. I mean, on the first long one that Cornelius Johnson had, that long one, I mean, we brought 3 safeties in the A gap, so that's pretty wild. Yeah, we dropped Jack Sawyer as the kind of the rat on the, you know, if they ran a quick slant to Ingram, but you know, I mean, that was about as exotic and crazy as I mean, he gets pretty nutty with his calls, and you know, in the Big Ten you get away with it because usually we have better skill out wide, you know, in coverage where you can hopefully get home, and the crazy thing is like that game that call is about a foot away from being a sack for a loss of 9, and JJ McCarthy just made one of the best throws in Michigan history. I mean, off his back foot, hits the guy, and we miss a tackle, and it's, you know, 70 yards to the house or 6 yards, whatever it was. And but I think you got to be, you know, the thing they're gonna have to do is figure out a way to match up with their 2 tight ends, because their 2 tight ends that's what the offense runs through, and they're really good. And I think that, you know, they're gonna try some different guys, you know, at kind of the down safety that they like to run, because they run a 3 safety. You know, the third safety is basically just a nickel, but is it Josh Pryor? Is it Sonny Styles? Because you need a big body in there that can match up with those 2. Because I mean,
I'd love to see Sonny Styles. That kid's a player.
Yeah, I have no idea what they've been doing with Sonny Styles other than why he hasn't played more. I think that, you know, the Tanner McAllister show, I get it, just because he went to Oklahoma State, but Sonny Styles has more talent in his big toe than McAllister has in his entire body. And we're only going to have Sonny for 3 years. Like in 2 more years, he's declaring and going pro, and probably be a first or second round pick. You know, he'll be a young 20-year-old first round pick. And you got to get him on the field. He's got to start next year. You know, and I don't know, he'll probably end up growing into will linebacker because he's so big. I don't know if he can keep his weight down to stay at safety, but this would be a game where, you know, hey, go beat up that tight end. You know, go run with that tight end, because you know, their tight ends are, you know, stopping their tight ends are the key to their offense, and stopping their 3 good running backs. So they've got 3 guys. None of them are Gurley or Nick Chubb, or like they don't have the one superstar that they normally have, but they've got multiple good backs. Like Georgia always had good running backs. When they had Nick Chubb and Stoney Michel, Gurley and Chubb, I mean, this is something that they've always had. They had James Cook last year, who's turned up for the Bills this year as a draft pick. But I think they gotta get after those tight ends. Like that's going to be the key to the thing. I think they got to make Stetson Bennett uncomfortable. I think our pass rush has to be better than it's been to get him off platform. This is the best line. I think this line is better than Georgia's, or excuse me, better than Michigan's. They were the final two for the Joe Moore Award, which is the award that goes to the best offensive line in the country. And I think Georgia's is better. I think they're more talented than Michigan. Michigan for the last 2 years has won the award basically because they beat us. So the committee's like, oh, they beat Ohio State. They thumped us. They ran for 250 yards against us, so they get to be the O-line of the year. But if you said who's more talented, I'd say Georgia. They just have better players. But they're well coached. They're tough. But it's gonna be interesting to see what Jim Knowles does because he really dialed it up and went for broke, and we came up broke. He really ran a risky scheme that that covers zero, where it's like if one guy's out of his gap, then it's a 75-yard touchdown, and it's great. If everyone's gaps down, if Tommy can get to his gap, and I'm not blaming Tommy because I think Tommy was first team All-American. It was kind of robbery that it wasn't named first team All-American this year. He was only a lowly second team All-American, which doesn't get you anything, doesn't get you a tree or anything. But I think he just is he's got to be a little more conservative this game because you can't have one guy be out of a gap and give up five touchdowns of 60 yards like you did against Michigan. Because if they do that, they have no chance.
Yeah, I love the word here. Cole's dropping your word exotic. You have to be exotic. You have to do something different. And there's always going to be that welcome. What do we usually say about the first time somebody plays college football at the Division I level, your first snap, and you get lit up, and you're like, "Hey, welcome to college football. Here's your moment. You just got welcomed or indoctrinated to college football." Jim Knowles had that, right? So now you have to figure out a way, especially when you're going against the reigning national champion, to affect this quarterback who has a great offensive line. Is the running game for Georgia, you mentioned it. It's not what Chubb or Gurley or Sony Michel was. But really, when you have a great offensive line, it doesn't matter who's running the ball behind them. Those guys open up the hole, and you and I could run through it, right? It's, to me, what Jim and his defense, what are they going to be able to do to throw them off? And they're going to have their eyes on Tommy Eichenberg, but what is Steel Chambers going to do? What is Lathan Ransom going to do? Because he's a guy that, he was showing a lot of promise all through like the middle part of the season, and then right when we got towards the end, right, had some bad reps, some bad snaps. We need guys to be able to step up, and the only way you beat the number one team in the country is for guys to play out their ass, right? You and I, we didn't play in the college football playoffs. We were in the BCS era, but when we went against a team like Florida, there was guys that played out their ass. Chris Leak played out his ass. How about this? Here's a great little comparison for you. So I was there when I was talking to Jim Knowles at Tom Benson Hall of Fame Stadium for the state championship game, the final one of the season here in Ohio, when Wyoming took on Glenville. And guess who was on Wyoming's coaching staff? Deshaun Wynn. He
Really?
was the cat running tailback behind Chris Leak when they beat us in the national championship in 06. Nobody remembers Deshaun Wynn other than somebody like us because we got smoked. But it's guys like that who Deshaun Wynn kind of like flew under the radar. He came out of Ohio. Everybody's like, oh, why are you going down to Florida? Didn't have like a great career there. But when he finally got his chance, which I kind of compare Deshaun Wynn a lot to like a Mayan Williams, once Deshaun got his chance, he took full advantage of it. He took the opportunity and he seized it. And in that national title game, Deshaun Wynn balled out. So certain guys are going to have to step up for us, offensively and defensively. Play the best game of your life, best game of your career, to be able to give us a chance to advance to the national title game.
Appreciate this, Paul. I hope you had a Merry Christmas, bro. I always appreciate this compliments from you guys. It was great. You guys, this is nice. This is an unannounced live, and you guys are tuning in. Yeah, I agree. Like these guys, they got to play big. I mean, if you look at Georgia on the year, Georgia has. I thought this was a misprint. They have 26 sacks total on the year, which I mean, Carter, the guy who's the number 1 draft pick, he's got 3. And they've played 13 games already. So I mean, it's not exactly blowing anybody's skirt up when you got 3 sacks in 13 games. But I mean, and the guy that is tied for the lead, Nolan Smith, he's out. So you take that off the board. They've got 23 sacks in 13 games, which is a really puny number. I mean, considering how talented they are and how good they are, that's not a big number. Statistically, they have 3 running backs, real good guys. 700, Kenny McIntosh, 709 yards. Dewan Edwards, 681. Kendall Milton, 533. So they don't have a bell cow. They don't have a 1,000-yard rusher. I think McConkey's out. Brock Bowers is far and away their leading receiver, 52 catches, 726 yards. But it's just funny when you compare their numbers to Ohio State's. And granted, I know we play in the Big Ten, but we've got multiple 1,000-yard receivers, multiple. I don't think we didn't have a 1,000-yard rusher, but we actually are much more prolific in terms of getting after the quarterback, which is, again, we play in the Big Ten, a little different, but it's I don't know. It's funny. Like I can't believe how small some of their numbers are, given how good their defense is. Like it's kind of stunning. Like Mayan led the team in rushing, 125 carries, 817 yards. It's weird that we didn't have a 1,000-yard rushing this year. When we came into the year with Trey Henderson, Mayan, you figured at least one of them would hit 1,000, but and then we have 2,000-yard receivers, which they don't have any. So it's interesting. Like you look at their sack numbers, and they have 23 dressing for the game because Smith's out. We had 32. Again, not a big number, but it just kind of shows you how interesting it is. And it's funny because Jack Sawyer and Mike Hall, 2 guys that I don't think play enough, led the team in sacks of 4.5 each. So yeah, that's it's always kind of interesting to compare the stats.
I mean, 4.5. I mean, that number seems small, especially like what I mentioned earlier, that Hall, I think, really caught a lot of people off guard early in the season, the first few games, and then he kind of fell off. But for me, like Mayan Williams, he wasn't considered the guy coming into the season. We lost Pryor in training camp. Trev has gone through whatever he's going through, being in a boot, whatever his leg injury, whatever's going on with him. And then, to see Chip start getting some carries. Dallin's another guy who deserves to get carries. To show your depth, I mean, that really is depth. You and I were talking, Kirk, about some signing day stuff. Wiltrell Hartson from Massillon. He's a guy that's considered a 3-star, and let me just throw this disclaimer out here right now. Those stars mean nothing. You and I have joked on some of these live podcasts, whatever it is. You were a guy that what I call you, a 1.25 star, a 1.5 star. Whatever you're getting starred at coming out of high school means nothing, right? Because once you get on campus, you get a chance to prove yourself at whatever position they're putting you at, and what type of ability do you have. I've seen enough 5-stars that have come through every Division I program that did nothing. I've seen a ton of 2-stars like yourself, who was a captain and All-American and one of the best football players to ever line up and wear the helmet for the Buckeyes. So, you never know what's going to happen in a season. Guys get hurt. You got to look at depth. Wiltrell Hartson, he's going to walk on to Ohio State, was a great running back for the Massillon Tigers. Statistically, maybe the greatest to ever carry the ball for the Massillon Tigers. Set numerous records. He's the single season all-time rushing leader. He set a record of like 13 or 14 consecutive 100-yard games. Here's one of the things I love about this kid. He doesn't put the ball on the carpet. He runs physical, low pads. When I was watching what we consider the game in high school football, which is McKinley and Massillon, I'm on the opposite end of the field, and I think Massillon is coming out from their own 2-yard line. And you could hear when Wiltrell got the carry, the handoff, Kirk, I'll give this perfect comparison to you, and you'll appreciate this. He runs the ball like Antonio Pittman. He wants to go to war every time he gets a handoff. You can see guys' mouth. Remember when Antonio hit that guy from Iowa and his mouthpiece came flying out? You could see it go flying across the screen when we were watching a film. Like when Wiltrell carries the ball, he's so physical that you can hear the pads cracking throughout the entire stadium. Now, he's walking on. He's not a scholarship guy, but hell, Chip Trainum, he was with Arizona State. He was supposed to be playing linebacker. And now by the end of this year, when we saw the sniff at the national title, he's carrying the rock for the Buckeyes. So you never know. You really never know.
I think it's
That's my analysis.
yeah, I think it's one of those things where, the kid's got a shot now. He's a guy that's tweener. Obviously, he doesn't have a, he probably has one offer, UAB committable. I don't know if that's committable. I mean, frankly, if I was in his shoes and someone wanted to pay for my school, I'd take it. Even, as much as I'd love to be a Buckeye, I'd rather not have student loans. But I don't know. It's going to be exciting. I mean, I think he's got a big opportunity because we whiffed on every single running back that we went after, from Cedric Baxter, Richard Young, Reuben Owens. We had Mark Fletcher committed for a long time and fell down at the finish line, and he goes to Miami. So there's real opportunity there. I mean, it's not like we wanted to take 2 running backs in this class as scholarship guys, and we didn't take any just because they all said no. And again, it's, you can make excuses and say it's NIL based, and some of it was, but that didn't affect Brian Hartline. Brian Hartline still signed kids that were big NIL kids, Brandon Ennis and Carnell Tate, 5-star top 2 receivers in the country. And that's just the new reality. Like you have to recruit against NIL. You're going to have to figure out a way to get these guys signed up, fundraise, whatever you got to do. But I think getting 0 running backs in the early signing period is completely unacceptable. And it's something that, if I'm Ryan Day, I'm having a hard conversation as to why that happened, because I can't remember the last time we had a signing day or recruiting class where we didn't take a running back. Like, I don't think that's ever happened in the history of Ohio State where we 0 running backs in our class. So it's going to be interesting going forward. I think that this is going to be a big time game, big time week coming up. TJ, we'll wrap this. You got any final thoughts? We're going into Tuesday's practice. It's probably the last padded practice work they're going to get done. Not sure if Ryan's going to put them in full pads because, it's towards the end of the season, long season. I'm sure they were banging a lot, when they're in the Woody Hayes during bowl practice. But any thoughts as we count down and we get within, 4 or 5 days of playing the Georgia Bulldogs?
Man, I'll tell you what. It's got to become business-like now. You've got you've gotten yourself past Christmas, the family stuff. I'm sure that guys now, again, it's a lot different than what you and I went through with cameras. Everybody can pull out their cell phone and take a little shot of you out at the club. Shout out, got the Buckeye leaf on the back of the phone here. You have to be smart about what you're doing. You want to go out and have a fun time, but understand that that this is a once in a lifetime opportunity. You were able to backdoor into this thing. So with some teams losing, and the way really, again, two bad quarters is what we've seen from Ohio State. The final two quarters of the Michigan game, Ohio State deserves to play for the national title. They deserve a shot at Georgia. So now, what are you going to do when you step out onto the field? Are you going to come out there with that business-like approach? Are you going to come out there with what I've always talked about before is the Jerome Brown type attitude when you get off the airplane and you got the fatigues on right here? I got my fatigues on right here. I got my Ohio State Buckeye shirt on. Talked about Antonio Pittman. That was our guy, right, Kirk? He would wear a military camo fatigue shirt under his shoulder pads because he was going to war every time he got the rock. And we loved that as his offensive line. We loved blocking for Beanie, but we loved blocking for Pitt because you knew this cat was going to bring 1,000% to whoever was going to try and tackle him on defense. Pitt, the toughness, that's what you need to see out of whoever's carrying the rock against Georgia. I need to see an offensive line who has gotten a little bit better since this Michigan game because throughout the entire season, we've been breaking this thing down since Notre Dame. There's been bad footwork. There's been bad hands. There's been bad pad level. A lot of things that when you're playing for when you're a starting offensive lineman for Ohio State and you break the huddle and go to the line of scrimmage, you should be, those small fundamental things should not be a factor. That's stuff that you should have already figured out in spring ball, training camp, and I've seen this stuff linger on till now. So hopefully they've gotten it figured out, right? CJ's going to come out. He's going to ball. He's going to do his thing. Hopefully this coaching staff, offensively, make it a priority to get the ball to Marvin Harrison. He's the best receiver in the country. You said it earlier, Kirk. Get him the ball. Don't do this bullshit bubble screen stuff. If Chip Trayanum is the best option at running back, give him the rock. The kid knows what to do with it. Offensive line, you got to bring it. There's so many things right now, pressure-wise. Yeah, Robert Olson. No, not Sam Pittman. There's so many things pressure-wise that are starting to build up towards game time for the college football playoff this coming Saturday. You got to be able to put that out of your mind. Handle business. Treat it as if it's the last time you're ever going to line up and play the game of football. You have a great, great opportunity in front of you. Seize it. Take advantage of it.
Yeah, you've got the ultimate opportunity to win a national title. And again, the funny thing about these games, man, is like for one of the teams on Saturday when the clock says all zeros, that team's done. Never playing again together ever again. Like that team is locked in the vault forever, and those guys are all going to go their separate ways. And the finality of that is something I don't think people realize sometimes when they're when they're doing that and they realize that they've got this is your last ride with your boys, and that was something that like after the Florida game, I was sitting there thinking I couldn't believe that I'm never going to play with Troy and you and Pitt and Gonzo. Like, that doesn't happen again. There's no reunion tour. Football's a different game. It's not like basketball. It's not like some sport where you can say, oh, let's go start a rec league team and go, we can still play basketball together. It's like, no, in football, you're done. It's a wrap. So I think it's something that, guys don't think about in the moment, but it's something that, it's something that could easily happen. And if I'm these guys, I'm doing everything I can to get one more ride.
People have always asked me, they're like, what was it like playing football for Ohio State? What was it like? And you and I both know, we've talked about this before. There's a huge difference between being on the team and starting for Ohio State, right? Being the guy. And I've always told people, it was like, felt like you were part of like Motley Crue. You know, it was huge, right? It was there was nowhere that you couldn't go and people didn't recognize you. But as you just mentioned, there's no reunion tour. Motley Crue has said we're shutting it down like 4 or 5 different times, and then they come back with a reunion tour. So once this is one time, you got one shot at it. There's no reunion, so don't let that opportunity pass you by.
Yeah, I totally agree. Well, appreciate you, bro. We're gonna wrap this thing up. We got a nice crowd in here. Thank you guys for tuning in. Great show tonight, guys. Appreciate you guys. Head over to BuckeyeScoop.com. If you enjoyed this, please leave us a like, click subscribe. We appreciate you guys as always. It's so fun. Our site is it's growing. It's just been fun, man. It's the #1 premium community for Ohio State fans. Thank you to all of you that joined us. Joined over Christmas. We had a lot of new subscribers. The gift of Buckeye Scoop. It's just such a fun thing to do. But we appreciate you guys so much. Shout out in the comments where you guys from. This thing's gonna be. Gonna turn this thing off in a second. So once the comments go live, shout out where you're from. Shout out. Who needs to step up to beat Georgia. And give Ryan Day some advice. These guys love watching our videos. So what do you think Ryan Day needs to do to beat the Georgia Bulldogs? So you guys put on your offensive coordinator, your defensive coordinator cap, give us some feedback. But we appreciate you guys. As always, click that like button, click subscribe. You'll get notified if you hit that little bell when we go live. We try to go live every single night leading up to this game. So we appreciate you guys. So as always, thank you guys so much. Thank you, Buckeye Nation. Thank you, Scoop family. It's time to beat the Bulldogs. Got to get on BuckeyeScoop.com to get the latest. Big practice tomorrow. We'll have updates on practice tomorrow. But we appreciate you guys as always. I hope you guys have a great rest of your night and or day. And I will talk to you guys tomorrow. That being said, go Bucks.